up? It's Way Up with Angela Yee, and this is indeed a special day. We have Malcolm D. Lee here with us. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, man. Thank you for having me.
And this is the book release, The Best Man, Unfinished Business, the first in a trilogy, and your first book, period.
Yeah, my first time.
I can't believe that you did this. I remember watching you do interviews for the 25th anniversary of the movie The Best Man, and you didn't mention necessarily that there was a book coming. So when did you decide that?
Yeah, it wasn't then. I'll tell you that. When I was pretty much, done with the story, done with telling this, version of it. And I said, well, the thing, what happened was I knew that people still wanted more. I didn't know what else I needed to do. And I knew it was going to be very difficult to bring everybody back, for another story. But I've always loved the written word. I've fantasized about writing a novel, and I said, well, here's my shot to do something that, here's some characters that people know, there's already established backstory, and people want it. So let me take my chance at doing that.
Was this something that just hit you, or did somebody suggest it to you and try to convince you?
It's funny, one of my boys, he's a screenwriter, his name is Malcolm Spellman. He said, yo, Mal, you need to go ahead and, make Best Man books. And I was just like, huh. And I was like, you know what? As I thought about it, I said, that's probably a good idea. Because again, given, what I wanted to do, in the space of novel writing, I said, that's a good idea. Let me give this a shot. Even though I don't really have time to do this kind of stuff. I still have a day job,
Right. You do have a day job.
Yeah,
running your own company and
right. And
still
so
directing and
trying to,
yeah.
So it's like, well, let me see if I can make this happen. And I brought on a novelist, Jane Allen, and, collaborated with her to try to figure out, how I want to do this very literary thing, not just, let me just make this so I can translate it into film and television. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose is to make a book.
It's interesting because in this book, one of the things that's happening early on, so it's no spoiler, but Taye Diggs' character, Harper,
yes,
is working hard at trying to figure out what he's going to write. As well.
That's correct.
And so it's kind of a parallel universe. How was that process for you, trying to figure out where was this story going?
It wasn't that difficult, to tell you the truth. I mean, I thought I knew the arcs of the characters, at least the first three, and that's Harper, Robin, and Jordan, and where they were living and what stage of their life.
And I got my Harper, Robin, Jordan T-shirt right here. So
yes. Wear that proudly. So I wanted to see what life was like post-divorce. For Harper and Robin. Robin has moved off to Ghana. Is raising their preteen daughter. Harper's living that bachelor life in Dumbo in Brooklyn, trying to figure out life, but he also kind of feels a little kicked out of his life. And same with Jordan, she's had to kind of take herself out of the whole corporate structure, as well as kind of distance herself from Harper. So, I felt, okay, that's a good starting place for all three of them. And what is life like for them at this point going forward? So it wasn't that difficult, especially once I started thinking about how I was going to tell the story.
But it's also a trilogy, so you have to map out what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's funny because honestly, what we were planning on, or what I was planning on, was ending this, novel with just these three characters, and then we would tell the other characters' perspectives. Each just want to back up for a second. Each chapter is a character's perspective, their own POV, and we experience it through them. And I was planning on doing that with the next novel, where we experienced the POV of Lance and Quentin and Lance's new bride Jasmine and Murch and Candace. But as fate will have it, as stories dictate, we did not end Harper, Robin, and Jordan's story here. We kept it going, so they're going to be continuing. We knew they were going to be continuing in the other books, but not in a way that we ended up being. So it's going to be it's very much a cliffhanger at the end of this book.
Let's say a character like Harper was your friend in real life, and he was like, "Who do you think I should choose? Right? Should I go with my wife, ex-wife now, who I messed that up." He definitely dropped the ball there. She was like his rock. She's the person that advises him on things, his support system.
Right.
It felt like he was better when she was in his life. Or Jordan, who arguably might be his soulmate.
What would I tell Harper to do? I'd say search your feelings. Think about this. Spend some time. You spend a lot of time and built a life with Robin. You know, are you and Jordan still compatible? Are you compatible now? You know, why didn't you ever take the chance? You know, I'm not gonna say like, oh, choose this person, choose that person. I'm team whoever, right? Like there's a lot of team Harp, there's a lot of team Jordan, there's a lot of team Robin out there, and I think it's a very healthy debate.
Do you believe in soulmates?
I think yes, kind of. I don't know. Like that's an interesting question. Do I believe in it? I kind of do. At least I think that people want that. People, you know, see that, you know, for themselves. I don't know if how real it is. I mean,
and that we have just one.
I don't know. I think people are in your life for, you know, for a reason or a season or whatever. And I think that happens. Like, you know, the people are in your they're going to be in your life for a journey, right? And like, does the journey end with that person? Does it continue? Does it, you know, do you learn something from that? And I think you're going to learn something from every experience about who you are as a person, who you are as a couple, and what you have to be committed to is, you know, the long term of you know, your relationship together, and you're also growing individually. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like I think that there's, you know, there's romance and there's fantasy and there's this idea of soulmates and whatnot.
And twin
that I think,
flames.
well, you know, it's because it's like people want to believe in that, right? And I think it's you have to also be realistic about like what your expectations are and, you know, who you think you are as a person and who you're evolving to be, because we'll never stop changing.
Right, you're right. So I'm not quite sure if you believe it.
I don't know if I do. I mean, I think a part of me used to believe in that, and I think for the purposes of this story, yes.
Okay.
I do believe in soulmates.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You know, also, I feel like in this book, as people read it, they'll see a lot of just storylines of people they could relate to, if not for themselves. Like we all know somebody who's lost a wife. Lance obviously lost the love of his life.
Yeah.
And has had to move on. And we're happy for him in that space. That's not an easy thing for a person to be able to do when they lost somebody that they love as much as he loved Mia.
Right.
So we're happy to see him just kind of like get through that, find somebody else who's compatible. Because sometimes you think that's it. Like,
yeah, and we're going to explore that, you know, in the next book with Lance and Jasmine,
good.
and their you know, dynamic, and see what that, you know, because Jasmine is not Mia. He may, you know, and of course Lance, you know, has kind of very traditional values about what he thinks, you know, a wife should be and whatnot. He's evolved over the years, but you know, some of those
he had to.
Yeah, he had to, but
yeah.
and some of those, you know, those things are something that, you know, he has to work through still. So you know, and he's in different stages of his life. He's not a pro athlete anymore. He's a coach now. So, and he's raising 4 children, and like, you know, one of his children is non-binary. And so how are you going to navigate all those things? So we want to dive deeper into that in the second book. But this book, we get a glimpse of what's happening with Lance. And I think, yeah, that's what's so great about having this great ensemble of characters to tell, you know, further stories and dive deeper. And you know, as I get more mature, and these characters get more mature, we get into some more a greater depth of character.
Now, you also talk about Robin moving to Accra in Ghana, right? And you actually had to travel there in order to be more connected to that experience of what she's going through.
It's interesting, yeah. I you know, we wrote the first draft of it, you know, before I went to Ghana, and just try to say, okay, like, you know, let me see what life is like. You're looking online, you're looking at, you know, what, you know, what pictures, but you can't really get a, you know, a sense of a place until you go there, right? So like I went there last November. Oh, it was October, and then into November for about a week. And, you know, just fully absorbed, you know, what not fully absorbed. You can't fully absorb something in a week, but I got a good taste of, you know, what it was like for an expatriate, or what they like to call it, returnees, on the continent. And so that was a great experience. And she's having a very kind of new spiritual awakening.
I do love that for her, though.
Yeah,
and
no, it's right for her.
And raising her child there too.
That's right.
And to see the way because that was also in the series. You know, people got to keep up on everything, because I feel like this isn't a standalone situation.
Right.
when you read this book, when you read this book.
That's right. Thank you.
You have to make sure that you revisit or make sure that you have the background on what happened prior to how we got here.
Yeah, I think that fans who are familiar with the characters are going to love this book, and those who even aren't familiar with the characters are going to love the book. I think it's well written. I think it's robust. It's propulsive. It's got romance. It's got sex. It's got mature adult themes happening in it, and I think it's a book that people are going to be entertained by.
Yes, men faking orgasms is in here.
What? Who does that? What man? What self-respecting man does that?
I have to imagine that every man has at some point done that. If it's not going to happen. Just like for women, I don't think probably as much. I don't know that to be a fact, but
have you ever been with a partner that faked it?
I mean, if he faked it good enough, I shouldn't be able to know.
Right.
But I have to imagine that at some point, because there has to be times when maybe it just isn't going to happen, right?
Well, I don't know. So, I mean, if it's not going to happen, then the equipment will often fail. But I mean, if you're faking it, then I think it's one of those things where you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. Right? I'm getting tired of this.
Is it that? Because sometimes it could be, for whatever reason, it could be good because it didn't seem like he wasn't having a good time. Mm-hmm. It could be good, but maybe it's just like, for some reason, I can't get to the finish line. Maybe there's a lot of things on your mind. I'm
sure that could happen.
And a real conversation guys are having now is about the whole not orgasming on purpose.
Oh, yeah. Well,
there's a lot of men today. I feel like we've had that discussion with a few different artists.
Is that right?
Yeah, who are like, they don't do it they just hold back and they don't finish. And that's like a practice that they're doing. What is it called again? Semen retention. Kevin Gates said it. Joey Badass said it.
Interesting.
As well, yeah. There's some more. This book is like timely too. I feel like as you're reading it, it feels like it was really written like today. You can tell.
Yeah.
Just from some of the things, like it's after COVID. It's the whole going to Ghana, which I feel like a lot of people now are having those conversations about building, buying land, starting businesses.
Ghana and Accra specifically, is a country and a city that's on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are, seeing the value in going back to the motherland and returning there and bringing back, what we've learned here and, building up a country that's been things have been taken from them, including people. Mm-hmm. So I think for Robin's journey, she was not just, disgruntled with her marriage, but she was also disgruntled with the country that she was living in.
Right.
She didn't want to fight anymore. She wanted to be in a place where she wasn't being judged by her skin color and her hair texture, and just wanted to be, a person. And she's found that in living in Ghana, and she's able to open a restaurant, which is that really kind of gets her creative juices flowing. It's a little bit more difficult on the business side for her, but she is managing to balance that and attract a new love interest.
Right. Whew. I'm not gonna give that part away because I'm not. All right. Anyway, but I do want to talk about the journey also that Jordan is on, having left her high-profile job at MSNBC and now pitching her own projects,
right?
Which I think was great. And there's one part in here. Hold on, because I definitely. Oh, this is the wrong one. I bookmarked it. Because I do feel like this is just so relevant to conversations, that we're having today, where she's pitching an idea for a show that she wants to do. And she said, I know how it feels, the stress, the anxiety, the taking on of others' expectations of what they know or think a strong Black woman is, and having this feeling that you have to overachieve, you have to represent, you have to live up to a standard that no other women in society have to contend with. We get questioned by everyone, not only from other women, white men, Black men, but nobody cares. And she said, when I went temporarily blind 3 years ago, I brushed it off. I didn't prioritize my health. I felt like that was just really powerful, thinking about how, as Black women, we have to show up to work. You have to be better than everybody. You have to make sure that you don't get too emotional. You have to make sure that if you come across as strong, they might also think that you're problematic.
Oh, yeah.
Just so many different things that Black women have to contend with. I just thought all of these things are just so timely.
Well, it is. I mean, it's like, look, we had a viable candidate for the United States president who was like, had all the qualifications, right?
And they still act like she was a DEI person.
Yeah, and it's like, what? And black women have done their job to try to save American democracy for decades, right? And so it's like Robin and Jordan are both like, you know what? I'm going to take care of me. On this journey with this book, they're going to take care of themselves and put themselves first, put themselves on the list.
Yeah, I just was like, because certain things, I think, and as I asked, I'm going to ask you this too, but I think about what character do I relate to the most.
Who is that?
Well, yeah, I would say definitely Jordan, somebody that is very career oriented, but also now she's living in Malibu. She wants to do things on her own terms. She's thinking about legacy. What's next? How do I make sure I live this great life? But also just really cautious about other things, like, not wanting to just jump out there.
Yeah, no, Jordan has always led with her head, right? She's never been one to lead with her heart. And that's been to her detriment, sometimes. Right. And now she's in therapy about that. And she's also, she gave up her high profile job and she's, again, put herself first. And at this point in her life, she's like dealing with, that, but also thinking like, there's a pull still of the grind. I've never known anything but the grind. So she's like, oh, I do want something for myself. I do want to get back out there and try to like work again. But, at the same time, she also needs to and wants to find love.
Who do you resonate with the most, you would say?
It's funny. People are going to say...
they're going to have an assumption.
Yeah, they're going to have an assumption that it's Harper or Murch or, but it's really, it's all the characters. But I've always said that like Jordan is somebody that is in my brain also. I have gotten married and I've got children and I've got, built a life with somebody. So, I'm not that far. So, and I think that I relate to all the characters because I've, they've been me at some point, or I've been around people like this, and are friends with folks like this.
Just thinking about Harper and how he's selfish in many ways. I wonder if to be a writer, you think you have to be a little selfish?
Yeah. To be an artist, you have to be selfish. You have to it takes a lot out of you. You're giving so much of yourself to the page, to the screen, to the, to the canvas, whatever. It is. You have to find that balance, though. If you hope to have relationships, and I think that is also part of life, and in deepening your artistry is to have experiences and to have relationships with people. So, but yeah, there is a certain level of selfishness that has to come along with being an artist, a writer, an author, a filmmaker, or an actor. That but at the same time, you do have to find a balance. Yeah,
I was going to ask you, how have you found that balance? Because that is a job that you've had from a very young age.
Yeah. It's just, trial and error, and having a very understanding partner,
right.
And someone that's supportive of me, and it's somebody that is in my corner and encourages me to pursue my dreams and pursue things. But at the same time, saying, hey, come take out the trash and take the kids to school, and I got these doctor's appointments, and why don't you schedule this, and da-da-da-da. So, it is a balance, right? And so, I've lived and learned, and I've had a very, understanding partner in my life since we were 24.
Do you think it's a luxury to have had your life just kind of from when you were young, you knew what you wanted to do professionally?
Yeah.
And the first ever movie you did ends up being a #1 at the box office film. And then you've been with your wife since you were, early 20s, been married. There's a certain level of your life is, some people are trying to figure it out later. And
yeah, I've been very fortunate.
Yeah, that's amazing.
No, it happened in a great way, Is that wood? I don't even know, right? But that's not wood, right? Okay, we'll knock on something anyway. I've been fortunate. I come from a grounded family. I'm a grounded individual, and so is my wife. We're both Earth signs, so we're very
we're Capricorns.
Yes, Capricorn, and my wife's a Virgo. So it's so we fit very well together. And again, she's been very supportive of me in the entire time, and I would not have the success that I have if I don't have her support and her in my life.
And your father is a musician.
Yes.
And usually you hear stories about like, musicians and being on the road and things like that.
Sure.
And
No, but he was a school teacher.
Okay.
So like, my father was also a very practical individual, right?
Okay.
Like he took care of his family. He made sure that like his kids were provided for, that we had a house in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, that, and then along with my mom, like they built a life together and made sure there was stability there.
What a great creative what are family reunions like and gatherings for you? Because I know you worked with your cousin Spike Lee early on in your career.
Right.
I believe you said he told you to tell black stories.
Well, he said make black film.
Yeah, make black film. Mm-hmm.
Whenever he would, because he'd always have a companion book to all his movies. He'd write in it, make black film, Malcolm, and then send that to me and say, go off to school, And so, I mean, the family reunions are kind of like, we see each other from here from time to time here and there. And, it's been great that he was been a leader and a mentor for me. He lived in my parents' basement when he was in film school. So I had no idea that I was like wanted to go, and that film was even an option when I was growing up. But he always encouraged me to write and to write stories. And the only way I was able to make my first movie was to write the right script at the right time. So, being a storyteller, being somebody that enjoyed writing from an early age, I knew that I was going to make my way in the world by being a storyteller. And, this is just another example of that with this novel. And
The Best Man, I remember you also had said when you first wrote that, you had another story you were actually trying to sell.
Yeah.
And it wasn't resonating at that time, so you figured, let me do something commercial.
What happened was I had this great romantic comedy that I was trying to tell, this great New York story, like in the vein of Annie Hall and When Harry Met Sally. This very organic love story, and it was very funny. But I couldn't get the money. I couldn't raise the money to make it. So I said, okay, I'm going to write something so commercial that I'm going to sell it and use that money to make my indie movie. And when I was in the midst of writing it, and I titled it My Homeboy's Wedding to begin, but I knew that was never going to be the title. But I started writing. I was like, oh, I can direct this.
Right.
And so, that was, and it was funny because that was the script that, Spike had read every one of my scripts, but when I gave him that, he was like, this is the one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was like, within like a month, I was going to meet the heads of Columbia Studios.
So whatever happened with that first movie?
It's still on the shelf collecting dust.
Is that something that you think one day you could
maybe
repackage? Because I think I would love to know what that is.
I've gone. It's called Feast and Famine, and I've gone back to it a couple of times. Maybe I'll make it a novel. I don't know.
Oh yeah, because now you are an author.
Listen. You got to be very diversified in this day and age. You can't just stick to one thing.
How much do you think it would cost to make this now? Because those characters that you had in the original Best Man.
Listen.
I mean, Terrence Howard. That was Regina Hall's first movie that she ever was in. She's been thriving. I love her as a human being.
She's fantastic.
Nia Long.
Yeah.
Just think about like these younger. It's kind of like. What was that movie, The Outsiders, where everybody ended up being real famous? Sure. And it's kind of like what this is. Tay Diggs.
It's the Black Pack.
Yeah, the Black Pack. What do you think it would cost? Like, what if you had to go to a studio and be like, here's the budget to do Unfinished Business?
Well, look, we're in.
Harold Perrineau starring in From. I love that series. I'm waiting for the new season to start.
Right, Morris Chestnut doing Watson. Yep. Look, I think. It was one of the reasons to write the book. Is that it's kind of cost prohibitive. It might be cost prohibitive.
You got to do some AI.
We're in 4 different cities. Mm-hmm. We're on 2 different continents. That is like that. You can't do that. You know, and hope to be successful and to keep it keep a budget and to make something that actually displays nicely on screen. Right. So this allows people to like have the experience of being with these characters and be with this friend group. And going to different locales. So, a movie like this, I don't even want to put a price tag on it.
Yeah,
it would be high.
How much? The Best Man was how much to make?
The first one was $9 million.
Ooh, okay.
First one was $9 million. The second one was 17, I want to say. 16? 19, something like that. 17, I think.
Yeah, well, that price, boy.
Yeah, yesterday's price is not today's price.
And you also have this bourbon, which I'm so excited to try, Sable. So tell us the story behind this.
You've got to try Sable. So it was born out of The Best Man and the relationships that I cultivated there. When we did Best Man Final Chapters for Peacock, there was always a brown spirit, during when the fellas would get together, play cards or hang out or what have you. And so Harold Perrineau was like, hey, why don't we do our own, liquor? And I was like, you think? And he's like, yeah. So, he, myself, Morris Chestnut, Tay Diggs, came together. We approached Bespoken Spirits, and they loved the idea. And, if everything from the color, the flavor, the packaging, the bottle was all us, and we all agreed on what it should be. And really, it's kind of a culmination of our friendship. All those dudes were at my wedding, for example, and like this, we're very integral in starting my career. So it made sense for us to keep working together and to show something and let people experience the book outside of it, with something they can share with other people.
I cannot wait to try this.
Oh, you're gonna love it.
Oh, I'm on it.
It's very smooth.
How was your bachelor party?
Great. Fun. Good times. Never to be spoken about again.
It just made me think of the movie. Okay.
My bachelor party was not as tame as the one in the Best Man.
Okay.
I'll leave it there.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then also Black Milled Productions, your production company.
Yes.
I love the name of it too. It's Black Mill, like MALED Productions.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, listen, that's been my mantra. That's been my my mission to normalize Black life in America, number one. Number two, really about Black men, really making sure that Black men are humanized in a way that feels authentic and real. And that's what, that's the stories I like to tell, whether it's, friendship or fatherhood or what have you, or brotherhood. I really want to, display that kind of, those kind of stories. And that starts from, movies and television, and now into books.
What would you tell an aspiring screenwriter thinking about how you got your start and the first movie debut that you did was #1 at the box office? Clearly you just went out there and made it happen. And sometimes that's hard for people to do and get out of their own way. But if it's a different day and age now, what would you tell an aspiring screenwriter?
You got to just keep writing. The Best Man was my 6th screenplay that I'd ever written. The other 5, still collecting dust or they're in a digital file somewhere. You know what I mean? So you're not gonna hit it out the park the first time. It just doesn't happen. There's no such thing as an overnight success. You got to keep working at your craft. And what I would say is when I was very intentional about how I was writing The Best Man. Again, I was trying to write something very commercial. And what was I looking at in the marketplace at the time? Wedding movies, very popular. I knew I could bring something to that genre with what I want to say about Black men and Black men's relationships and college-educated Black men. And so I was like, okay, I can set it over a 3-day weekend because that's how the wedding's going to be. And you got the trappings of what a wedding has. You have your natural set pieces, the wedding, the reception, the rehearsal dinner, bachelor party. Okay, you do all these things. And so, again, it was very intentional. So I think for aspiring filmmakers, they got to look at what's popular out there and also what is missing. And I think there's a lot of, there's a space right now for young people to make their generational movie right now, because where's the Superbad for this generation? Where's the Breakfast Club for this generation?
Yeah. And
I think that there's a lane for it, and there's somebody's gonna crack the code and make it. And I'm hoping I'm going to be producing it.
Yeah. Well, you know where to go, guys. Black Milled Productions.
Come on, bring it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy that we were able to do this. The book is available, The Best Man, Unfinished Business, the first in a trilogy. It is, it's a fun read, especially when you love having watched the first 2 movies, the series.
But you don't have to have seen it. In fact, my what's so weird, my co-author, Jane Allen, her dad, he's a doctor. He reads nothing but medical journals. He picked up the book. He couldn't stop reading it. He'd never seen the movies.
It's amazing.
And he was just like, this is incredible.
You're going to relate to somebody or something
here. Oh,
here.
without a doubt. July 1st,
topics,
pick up the book, pre-order now.
And don't fake your orgasms.
Yeah, don't do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Malcolm D. Lee. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Angela.
Way up.